You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Our call-in line is 1-877-932-9766. But if you would like to have get in contact with me, you can have your Gmails read by doing this: 7 Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com, and I will, if I get a chance to read your Gmails, particularly if they forwarded to me. Okay, don't forget that we are accepting donations for hour number 2. TalkTainmentRadio.com will cover the first hour, but we need the donations for the second hour, and we appreciate you who do donate, and for those who continually donate, but there are new people all the time. So all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and you'll see a gold donate button right there. Just hit that and donate whatever amount that you want to do, so that we can continue the great work that Mr. Fuller is doing. Today's topic, being Wednesday, the 12th of June, 2019, will be the proper use of time and energy. And we will have Mr. Fuller address that, and of course your calls, and then I will read your Gmails. Okay, I think that's all the housekeeping we have to do. I forgot to do this. You call in, as you know, by calling 1-877-932-9766. We are also on YouTube, so all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, then you will type in the word radio, and then scroll down to Talktainment number 2, and then you are there. Hit the subscribe and like button right there. You can also go to the facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can hear the entire replay of the programs, the full 2 hours. You can do that. Okay. And also you can go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage. Just click on programs, or listen live actually, and then you're there. And hit the subscribe and like button there. Okay, let's get out of the way here. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And as our usual custom is, we start off by saying, good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning, I'm still learning.
Okay, you're coming in very loud and very clear, which is good. Okay, Mr. Fuller, you've often mentioned time and energy, and for those of you who have the code book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, on the revised expanded edition, you can go to page 59 to follow Mr. Fuller. It is up on the screen right now as I speak, but we're going to be coming in that and have Mr. Fuller expound and express his thoughts on the use of time and energy. Mr. Fuller, when you have mentioned that time and energy, just for those who are new to the program, and just to be clear, what are you speaking of, sir?
I'm speaking of the use of time and energy, and I define that as what basic economics is. Your time and your energy. Time is something that everybody is given when they are born. Mm-hmm. And everybody, in more or less degree, is given some type of energy. Babies come into the world with some type of energy on their own. Once the cord is cut, the baby is energized on its own. And the baby has time. The baby is born at a certain time. So we all come here at a certain time, and we leave here at a certain time. So during that time, you're supposed to be, you will be using energy. And so it comes down to, how are you using the time and energy that you are given? And I underline the word given, G-I-V-E-N, because that's what we're given. It's a gift. We didn't do anything to get it. A mother will be carrying her offspring, standing in the rain, on her way to work maybe, because she hasn't reached the time for the baby to be born.
Mm-hmm.
And in the world, all over the world, as we know it, there are ladies who have to work right up to the time that a child is born. Now that child, most of them, run a term of about 9 months. I talked to a white person once who said, well, are you around here talking about, this and that and race issues and all like that, and nobody never gave me nothing. And I never had nothing. I never had no kind of support. And so I said, well, what you said is not true, because if under normal conditions you had at least 9 months in which you got a free ride. You weren't doing anything to earn anything, but you were being well fed, well taken care of, because, and the evidence is, I'm looking at you. You're here. So somebody did something for you for at least 9 months. Now, after that 9 months, they probably didn't do anything. But I tend to believe that a lot of people have helped you do a whole lot of things before you came into the world and after. And he had to kind of chuckle himself, because that was what? That was true. Time and energy. We're all given that. Now it comes down to how are we supposed to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So you look around, babies look around, babies are very curious and whatnot, want to know, hey, I'm dropped off here, now what do? I'm here, so I guess I'm supposed to be doing something. So at a certain point, the baby is supposed to look around and say, well, now, I got to have this and I got to have that. How do I get it? The baby has to be fed at a certain point, has to learn how to feed itself at a certain point, maybe in most parts of the world. How do I go about doing that? So right away, we're faced with what? In the use of our time and energy, we're faced with problems. We could have been born into a world in which everything was already there, and at one time, according to some people who are Bible scholars, they said it was that way.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was born into a garden, and all you had to do is just walk around, and when you got ready to eat, just pick fruit off the trees and whatnot, because it was already there. You didn't have to nurture the trees. You didn't have to do anything with them. Everything was there, everything you needed. And you had shelter from the storm, because you were pretty tough people back in those days, I guess, understandably, because people didn't have clothes, but they didn't need clothes. The weather was always just right for the bodies that they had, I guess. I don't know. That's according to some, what you call Bible scholars. But then there are other people that have different opinions, and so, but that's another story. But the one thing that has manifested itself while people are here on this planet, and that is you're born into a world in which people are handed a whole bunch of problems. Now, the nature of the problem will be where you were born, who your progenitors were, the person who delivered you into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that person? Was that person on a mountainside, that person on a farm, person in a city? Or you could have been born in what they call royalty. Someone at some point told you, do you know how lucky you are? You were born as a member of a royal family, and you will never, ever, ever have to want for anything. You don't have to lift a finger to do anything, because everything will be taken care of right from this moment. You're very lucky that that you were born into this family this day. But then, down the road, from there, a mile away maybe, as for an example, there's another person being born who is going to have to work and work and work and work and work, and I mean non-stop, and then probably drop dead at a very young age. They're destined to do this. Age 30, and they've worked themselves to death. And they're just a mile away from this person that was born who will never have to want for anything. So that's one of the first things you notice about this world that we're in. Some people have it pretty easy. Some people are born under circumstances where you have problems, lots of them, a whole ocean of problems. Sometimes people can predict that you're going to have problems. They say the circumstances that person is born under, if they stay in those circumstances, oh, they are going to be miserable. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a hard way to go. So what are we talking about here? Time and energy, which is in the textbook for victims of racism, economics. That is the definition of economics, the use of time and energy. Mm-hmm. How do you use it?
Okay.
So you use it to solve problems.
All right.
For most people who are on the planet.
Yes. Okay. Let's start with this before we go on. If you have page 59, Mr. Fuller, in the revised expanded edition, this is just so that we can be clear and then we can launch off from there. Beginning, let's say, in the middle of the page where it says, if you can read that, there's two paragraphs there that should be read here, the last two. Economics means, do you see it? Do you have that, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you, people like to hear you read that and explain that. So. Okay,
page 59 of the revised, expanded 2016 edition of the textbook for victims of white supremacy. You have economics. Economics means the correct distribution of and or balance between all animals, persons, places, plants, things, etc. Mm-hmm. Economics, in the correct sense, is the sum total of all of the thought, speech, and or action used to produce maximum efficiency in revealing truth, and this even includes for animals and creatures and insects. They have to have maximum efficiency in revealing truth in order to have command of their environment. And then it goes on, revealing truth in a manner that promotes the establishment of justice and correctness in all areas of activity. Now, the justice would apply to people, of course.
Yes.
And correctness would apply to creatures of other species. Economics also means using all things, thought, speech, and or action with maximum efficiency with the objective of eliminating racism. And why would I start off saying that that's what economics is? Using maximum efficiency in what you do and what you say, all your thinking, everything that you say, in eliminating racism. Why make that one of the priority in economics? You say, well, I'm taking economics in class, and they don't say anything about any racism, anything like that. We're talking about dollars and cents. So we're talking about pounds sterling. We're talking about gold and silver. We're talking about how to, manage your finances with the banks and how to borrow money and how to trade goods. That's what we're learning. They didn't say anything about any time and energy being used to eliminate racism. Mm-hmm. Well, in a world in which you have racism is the major problem in the world, according to counter-racist logic and the evidence. And what is economics? Time and energy, how you use your time and energy. You should be using your time and energy to eliminate racism, and not just eliminate racism, but also to replace it with something better. So, otherwise, you might as well keep it if you can't find nothing better.
Yes.
But what would be better, theoretically? A system of justice.
Yes, sir.
Which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. But let me go on with this second paragraph. Economics does not mean simply acquiring, saving, and or spending money. Economics is not a tool of money. Money is a tool of economics. Economics is the result of people speaking and acting effectively in the production of justice and correctness.
Yes.
Now, that's compensatory or real economics.
Yes, sir.
According to truth. It is not simply how money is handled that determines economics. It is a matter of how everything is handled and to what end. Economics pertains to how all time
Yes, sir.
and all energy is used.
All right.
And that starts with when you get up in the morning. I mean, is it economical to that food that you have on your plate right now, if you're somewhere where you're eating breakfast or dinner, or wherever in the world you might be, you say, is this an economical dinner or breakfast that I'm eating? Well, what would determine whether or not it's economical? It has to do with time and energy. You're using your time to eat whatever you're going to eat, and is that food that you're eating going to give you energy to get the things done that need doing, or is it going to take away your energy? Now, you might have a drink over there, what they call straight whiskey and whatnot. Well, now, that might energize you in some kind of way, but you're talking about energy as it is used. Is that going to be constructive? Because every move that you make, you're making it with the use of time and energy.
Okay.
And you should be problem solving, not problem making, the use of your time and energy.
All right. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's several shows I'd like to share with you. Let's start with this one, The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Now, that show, how about this one, Wiggins World, and this one here, All in the Family. All these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. And all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and there click on programs, and there you will find a list of all the programs that TalkTainmentRadio.com carries. Give it a sample, see how you like it. A lot of you apparently really love this program, The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You really love that, and the indications, particularly with the Gmails that I get, you really like this show. So that's a good thing, which is another reason why you should make a donation to the second hour. I thought I would get that in there. But anyway, go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and click on programs and select which one you'd like to sample and hear and so forth. And then hit a like and subscribe button. So, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic today is the proper use of time and energy. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, this comes from, oh, wow, my page just went out here. Let me see if I can get the back. Okay, Sapilo, and I did pronounce your name incorrectly, but unless you send me phonetically how to properly say your name. But anyway, Dalmany, he says this. Mr. Fuller, I watched Shawshank Redemption, but but analyzed the main analyzed it. The main character had a problem in the area of sex and law. When he entered prison, he was very observant. He had quit drinking. He said, quote, "Get busy living or get busy dying." I'd like to refer the listeners to Papillon, true story, also similar to Shawshank Redemption. Mr. Fuller, did you notice that the main character had a problem in the area of sex and law when he entered into the prison?
Well, yes, in Shawshank Redemption, because the problem was he was, first of all, apparently he was in the prison because he was accused falsely and sentenced to double life sentence, if I remember, for doing what? For killing his spouse. All right? In a rage because he caught her with a golf player. And he was drinking while, when he caught him. And so he testified that he didn't remember anything about what happened. He intended to kill him, intended to kill her maybe, and whomever she was with. Mm-hmm. But he didn't remember doing it. But that was his intention. And it turned out that he found out later in the movie that somebody else killed him while he was in a drunken stupor. All right? So apparently he was not what you might call a homosexual, because, I guess, in the movie, because he had a spouse that he said that he loved very dearly. Okay, but in the prison itself, he was sodomized by force. And that happens a lot in prisons, I understand, particularly with young black males who go in. I mean, they just wait for them. They just line up and wait for them and say, "Oh, you're going to be mine. You're going to be mine whether you want to or not. You are going to be mine. I'm going to be your cellmate, and I'm going to do a job on you, and you ain't going to be able to do nothing about it. Sorry about that. You shouldn't have taken this trip in here. You should have thought about that when you got in this mess that you got into. But, I mean, hey, we all in here for something. So the law of the jungle is in here. So, hey, if you're tough enough to fight me off, more power to you." So this goes on, I understand, around the clock, everywhere, that you have prisons all over the world, okay? And so getting back to Shawshank Redemption, yes, I from what I could see, he did have a sex problem, because when you're being forcibly sodomized, I mean, sometimes what they call gang rape, which Andy Dufresne in the movie was, he had a problem, but he figured out a way how to solve that problem, because he was tired of being treated that way, okay, which correctly so. So how did he solve it? He had to go use the power of the people who had put him in there and use them to defend him from the people who were raping him. And he did that by doing what? By getting in their favor. So that was his strategy. He worked out that strategy. I don't think, from what I can remember about the storyline, it wasn't, he didn't deliberately do it. He kind of fell into it, and he said, well, oh yeah, in order for me to help these guards, and I'm helping these guards with their taxes and whatnot, their income taxes, and helping them to save money, all the guards in the prison, now, I have a little industry going on here, and so I have to be in good health, and they have to protect me in order for me to do favors for them, like do their taxes. So that's when the head of the guards took the chief sodomizer out of action by almost beating him half to death, saying, "Hey, you messing with my business now. Say, I don't mind you sodomizing Andy Dufresne, working for me and you are doing harm to him, I'm going to do a job on you.
Yes.
With this nightstick, which is what he did. Dragged him out of his, into his cell and proceeded to beat him with a billy club until he was incapacitated. Broken this, broken that. Actually, what was the line in the movie? According to Red, said Boggs, who was a sodomizer, spent the rest of his days eating his meals from a straw.
Yes.
That ruined his sodomizing business.
Yes, it did. Woo! Yes, it did. Okay. Well, so he got, Andy Dufresne ended up getting protection from being
from protection from the very people who were imprisoning him and mistreating him. But see, he said, how can I get out of this? How can I get some relief? And so I can get some relief, and get some relief even for Red and some of the other prisoners by doing little small things for the guards who are guarding me.
The question was, how do I recognize for sure that a person is jealous or envious of me on the job? And then secondly, once I find out that they are envious or jealous, how should I behave with them so that all of our interactions have a constructive result? Should I be extra serious, or should I be even more polite and courteous? Then you answered his question, Mr. Fuller, so he is saying today, thank you, Mr. Fuller. I appreciate your answers, and I have follow-up questions as well. My follow-up question is, Mr. Fuller, when it comes to other people's motives, are you suggesting that I should not be concerned about others' thoughts and speech? Or should I just focus on the actions and not what leads to the actions?
You can focus on all of it, but how you react, you just center on one thing. Do the most constructive thing. Most constructive means what? Compared to what? Compared to anything that anybody in the same circumstances could ever do in a million years. This is what real codification is about. Try to think of what is the very best thing that not just me, but any person in these circumstances could possibly do in 10,000 years of looking through everything that you can possibly do in that length of time, and try to come up with the best response to what you do in every circumstance. That's basic codification, the most constructive thing that you can do.
Okay.
And it calls for some thinking. That's all. You just look at what's going on and say, now, what I'm going to do, my reaction to this, is going to be so constructive that no one in the next 1,000 years will be able to do it better.
Okay.
Now, that takes some thinking.
Yes, sir.
I mean, some serious thought. If you're going to outdo someone faced with these same circumstances, and you, in 1,000 years, they will never be able to top what you are going to do in the next 5 minutes. No person will ever be able to do it, because that will be the very best thing. See, not just something that's a little bit better, or something that's, well, it is a slight improvement, or, you're just doing the best you can, I mean, in a whimsical manner and whatnot. No. Before you make a move, before you say anything or do anything, say, now, when I say this, or when I do this, in the next 1,000 years, no one will be able to do it better than what I just did 2 minutes ago. what I'm fixing to do 2 minutes from now.
Mm-hmm.
It will never be done better.
Okay.
That's it. But always stay in the constructive mode. Don't look so much at who the personalities are. Don't get drawn into people's personalities. Just look at what's being done, and look at, if it's something that shouldn't be done, look at the remedy for taking care of that situation.
Okay.
What's the best thing that you can do, considering what you have the power to do?
Okay.
And then do it.
Now,
or say it. Might be something you have to say.
Yes, sir. Okay, he goes on to say this, concluding it. He says, Mr. Fuller, would it be constructive to attempt to avoid or solve the problem before it gets to the action?
Yes, well, you're supposed to be in a problem-solving mode all the time. That's what we were born for. I started off this program saying that. That's basic economics, the use of time and energy.
Basic economics.
Problem-solving, yes, that's basic. That goes without saying. That's not an option. You say, hey, how do I solve this problem? And solve it by going through a procedure that will never be topped by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you died and came back 1,000 years from now, and you saw somebody faced with that same problem, that it would, if they did it the way that you did it 1,000 years before then, that would have been the best way, because nobody's figured out a way to do it better than you did it, than you did 1,000 years before. That's the way you look at it.
Okay.
How can I go about handling this particular situation in such a way that nobody will ever do it better?
Okay.
And then what I'm fixing to do in the next 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. I have two questions for you myself. The first one is this right here. I noticed, Mr. Fuller, that you say, I don't know a lot. I was asking, why do you say, I don't know a lot?
Well, I say that every time I'm on the program. I start off saying, good morning.
Yes.
I'm still learning.
Yes.
That means I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot of anything. I don't know enough of anything, really. You're talking about, someone asked me on a program earlier. I don't know if it was this program or another one, but I think I've said it on this program. Somebody said, could I name some of the mistakes that I've...
Oh, yes.
And that was just on this program.
I believe it was, yeah.
And my answer was what? It was everything I've ever done was a mistake. Why? Why do I say that?
Yes.
Because I have not accomplished what I should be accomplishing with my time and energy on this planet that's been given to me. And that is replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. Now, somebody might ask, well, why would you think that a job like that is your duty, Neely Fuller? Why do you think that you got to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice? Because that's my assignment. That's why.
Okay.
And anything that I do that does not accomplish that is a mistake. A mistake as relative to what? The use of my time and energy. I'm here to solve problems. That's the biggest problem on the planet. Racism is the biggest problem on the planet. According to whom? According to the evidence and logic. That's what I'm going by. Now, if somebody sees a bigger problem than that, I want to know about it.
Okay.
Because I'll be working on that. Because you always start with the biggest problem and then work down to the small one.
So you're saying the evidence and the logic suggest that racism, white supremacy is the biggest problem on this planet?
On the entire planet called Earth.
Okay.
Other planets, that might be other problems.
Okay.
But why? Because you can't solve any problem among people on this planet without solving the race problem.
Okay.
That's how I started out, thinking that you can get around the racism, just on your day off, and deal with that type of attitude and whatnot. But then I found out that if you're a non-white person, and most of the people on the planet are classified as non-white.
That's true.
and those people have problems, well, since they're classified as non-white, who did this classifying and for what purpose?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, somebody who's getting something out of it. Because people are not supposed to be classified, I mean, according to how they're going to be treated, according to color. But somebody thought that up. And it became something called racism in the form of white supremacy. And it has plagued this entire planet and contaminated all areas of activity 24/7 for everybody who is breathing on the planet in 2019. Contaminated what? Economics, the use of people's time and energy.
Yes.
Education, completely contaminated. People keep arguing about education based on what? Whether or not people have the ability to learn? No, that's not it. Well, what color you are will determine how much education you're going to get.
That's also true.
Yes. I mean, and what you're going to have to pay for that education, just to learn a little bit about how to function on the planet. And so who calls these shots? The white supremacists.
Yes.
The usual suspects. They tell you, you got to pay to learn. Well, pay whom? Pay me. All right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, what price do I have to pay? Whatever price I set for.
Wow. Yes.
All right? Now, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The white supremacists, racism, dominates all of these activities. Anything political, anything in the area of religion, people can't agree on religion, mostly on account of what? The color question.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, well, wait a minute now. How many people are going to be, if you're talking about Christianity, how many dark-skinned people are going to show up?
Ooh.
All right, at this religious meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, we got to have a quota or something here. I mean, things that get out of hand. Because, we don't worship the Lord. We don't worship God. I mean, alongside any dark-skinned people, we have to go to the other side of town and do that, and then come back and tell them what the gospel is. See, it contaminates everything.
Yes,
the color question contaminates everything.
Yes.
Politics, you name it.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to do it after we do this. TalkTameAtRadio.com, we go where you go. Simply download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. But it is at this time that we specifically set aside for Mr. Fuller to talk about, for those of you on TV or on YouTube, to this book right here. This is what we want Mr. Fuller to talk about, and this is the book that I am suggesting that you purchase and read it, put it on your coffee table, and then share it also with other people. This book right here, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, it's up on the screen for those of you who are on YouTube. Mr. Fuller, please speak to your book here for a couple of moments here.
Well, the book is basically about problem solving. Now, it's all about racism. That's what the book, that's the focus.
Yes.
In the form of white supremacy. And it's for the victims of racism, what to do, what not to do.
Yes,
what
sir.
to say, what not to say.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of suggestions about what to think. Because you're supposed to think before you do or say anything on the planet every day. You're supposed to do some thinking. You shouldn't just jump up and do this anything, any kind of old way and just hope that it works out. I mean, you should be scientific in every move that you make. When you're talking to someone, what do I mean by scientific? I mean, you talk to someone in such a way, regardless of whether it's a white person or a non-white person, male, female, or whatever, in such a way that you get the most constructive results out of what you're doing. And when you act, you get the most constructive results. Because anytime you're doing anything constructive, if you're a person who is classified as non-white, you are opposing racism. Because a non-white person is never supposed to do anything that is constructive without a person who is classified as white officiating over that constructive activity. That's one of the laws of white supremacy. That's one of the roots. That's the main thing. A person classified as black is always supposed to be in a stupid mode, doing things stupid when they're off, you might say, on their own time. But they're really not on. None of us are on our own time in the prison system called the system of white supremacy. But the book is supposed to help you to navigate through this system in such a way that ultimately you replace the system with a system of justice if you're a person of color, and move on to be universal man and universal woman in correct harmony with the universe in every area of activity. That's the way it should have been for everybody, white, non-white, male, female, everybody, small infants and whatnot, everybody in tune with the very best that the universe has to offer in the most constructive manner. That's the kind of wavelength we ultimately want to get on and lead it that way. But you can't do it in a world where people are going at each other based on what color somebody is. And so this book is designed to help the people who are victims of this system to eliminate this system and replace it with a system of justice and correctness and peace, ultimately. Universal man, universal woman. Mm-hmm. That's what the volume is for.
Yes, sir.
You can get it by going to producejustice.com, and it's addressed to the individual person, what you can do each and every day to bring about this goal. And you don't apologize for heading for that goal. You just tell people that's your goal. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's logical. It makes sense.
Yes.
People who will push back and argue against it, a lot of non-white people will say, oh, I don't want to be bothered with this race thing. Well, the race thing is going to be bothered with you. But people have asked me, well, how do you get black people interested in having that kind of focus? You don't have to. The white supremacists will get them interested in having that kind of focus. Mm-hmm. I mean, all they got to do is just keep doing whatever it is they're doing. The white supremacists, if you're a person of color, will let you know you ain't going no further. All right?
Yes.
Why are you not going any further in what you're doing if it is of any constructive value? Because I said so, that's why. All right, and then now it's time to look into the book that you can get by going to producejustice.com. It's only when you or someone you're associated with has a problem that you can't seem to overcome. If you look around, the people who can do the most to solve that problem is going to be somebody classified as white. You can almost guarantee that.
Okay. All right, producejustice.com. Okay, in the remaining moments that we have here in the first hour, I was in a discussion group, and we were discussing the movie When They See Us. I believe it's on Netflix, and of course the question came up, I wonder if Mr. Fuller has viewed this. I don't know if you have or not, Mr. Fuller, but I'm going to suggest that particularly concerning the subject that we always talk about on this program, racism, which is white supremacy, I'm going to suggest, Mr. Neely Fuller, if you haven't seen that movie, and it's a 4-part documentary about something that really happened, I want to suggest that you, if you haven't seen it, that you do see that, so that we can have a conversation about that, or some type of dialogue, because many people are asking, have you seen it? Of course, I use that, well, I don't know, because I don't know if you have or not. I think that you have heard of it. There's been a lot of talk about it in the media, in social media. But first of all, have you seen the documentary?
What is the name of the documentary?
When They See Us.
Oh, yes, I've heard of people talking about that recently, but I have not seen it.
Okay. I want to suggest, Mr. Fuller, that you do have an opportunity, to see that so that we can have a dialogue, because I've had many questions on that, but I know that since you haven't seen it, you really can't make a logical statement or statements on that because you haven't seen it. You don't know what it's about, but you did live through that and probably saw some headlines when the events did happen. So I want to suggest that sometime in the future that you do look at that so that we can have a dialogue, because I have a bevy of questions or people want to ask you, but they can't because you haven't seen it, and you're not going to make a comment on something that you haven't seen. So when they see us, it's on Netflix, if you get the opportunity to, and I have seen it, and whoa, boy, Mr. Fuller, yeah, I'll be interested in what you have to say about that. So when you get a chance, when they see us, and we got to add that to, maybe we can add that to your list also.
When they see us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will definitely try to get around to doing that.
Please, sir, because I know you're busy, but please, sir. Okay, let's see here. A question came up about the people have heard you say this, make this statement, stand by your work. A question came up in the group, what about this, stand by what you say?
Same thing.
Okay.
That's your work. What you say is a part of your work.
Okay.
When I say your work just means what economics is. So what is economics? Use of time and energy. That's work. Okay? So, whatever you're doing, you stand by it. You say, I'm doing this, or I'm saying this. So you stand by your work.
And don't lie.
Right. In other words, and if you're doing something and somebody else is doing something different, you stand by the work that you are doing. And you make a distinction between the work that you are doing and the work that somebody else is doing so that you avoid what? Confusion. Don't mix up what somebody else is doing with what you are doing. If you have an opinion, say, this is my opinion. This is not the opinion of the person standing next to me. I'm going to give my opinion of what is going on, or what these events, or what I think should be done, and what I think shouldn't be done. This is mine. Now, if you're going to quote someone else, see, you don't stand by the work that somebody else is doing. You just say, to somebody else said this. I say this, that somebody else said this. See, and don't get the two mixed up, because that causes what? Confusion. And this is very important, because the white supremacists always will exploit anything that they see that's going to enhance, that's going to increase the confusion in the minds of their victims.
You said before we had to go and go to the second hour that stand by what you say is also standing by your work.
Yes. Everything is thought, speech, and action. So if you're saying something, that's speech. And action means you're doing something physically. See, and those three things should be combined to have what? The most constructive result. Thought, speech, action. They're supposed to produce what? The most constructive result that you can possibly produce under the circumstances given. That should be the goal of everybody, 24/7. Most constructive result. That's what you want out of every move that you make, no matter how small or large. Every move, your use of time and energy, should produce a constructive result. That should be your focus. Now, there will be mistakes made, because that's just the way everything is set up. You make mistakes. That's the learning process. You learn mostly from mistakes that you make or someone else makes. But you learn from that. and then you try to make things the way that they ought to be under whatever circumstances you are. That's you're under.
Okay.
That's the procedure for what? Correct economics, the correct use of time and energy. And on page 60, which we didn't get to in the first hour, it outlines, because some people have asked me, said, "Fella, there's a whole lot in that book. I mean, can you tell me in a capsule what a person can do just right this minute? I mean, what are some of the things? Be specific. Don't ramble all over the place about we ought to do something, because I heard enough of that. And most people have said that in one way or another. I've said that. Codification is not about rambling. It's about being very razor-sharp specific about the details of what you do. So on page 60 of the Revised Expanded Edition, how would I go about creating nothing in order to put the something into nothing?
Yeah.
Because I have to have the nothing in order to put the something in. That's the theory, and I think the theory is correct. So I know, I look at my own fingernails. I look at my fingers right now. I'm looking at them right now as I talk right now, and I'm moving my fingers. I just moved them, just this minute. I moved them. I spread my fingers, and I closed them. I spread them, and I closed them. Then I clenched my fists. I just did it, just now. I have absolutely no understanding of how I did that. Now, if I was a creator, I would know every detail of how I was able to do that. I would know every detail of where I was before I was born. How about that? Do you know every detail of what you were doing just before you were born? I'm talking about before you were even conceived.
Right.
Before you were ever in your mother's womb. Do you know where you were and what you were doing? What your job assignment was? And then you said, did you wake up, on your own and whatnot if you were asleep? And then you would have to have created sleep, too, to know something about that. If you were a creator, you would know who created sleep. All right? And you say, I think I'll be born. And I'm going to take a little trip around this place called Earth. And I think I'll do that next week. That's after you invented a week. Okay? So, but people do not create anything. I've never run across a person that created anything. Because whatever you say, well, I created this new form of transportation. Well, no, you arranged a new form of transportation. Transportation was here already. People were transporting themselves, so you found some materials, all right? Say that you came up with a new type of scooter, which you see a lot of nowadays. So you say, I created this. No, you arranged it out of stuff that was already here. I mean, you got materials together. Now, did you create those materials? Did you create a grain of sand from nothing? And did you produce the nothing to put the grain of sand in? A creator produces nothing and then takes the nothing and puts things into the nothing, the something into nothing.
Yes.
That's what a creator does. I don't know of anybody who's ever done that and could prove it by demonstrating it.
Wow. Woo! That is, as I've heard people say, that is deep. Whatever that means. TopTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's several more that I'm going to share with you. This is Libby with host Libby Rand. Let's see here. New Money with Drew and Janae, pardon me, and a conversation with Don Karina. Now, these shows are all exclusive to talktainmentradio.com. And all you have to do is go to the talktainmentradio.com homepage, click on programs, pardon me, and you're there. And you can give a sample, a listen to each one of those programs to see if you like it. And if you do, hit the like and subscribe button there. All this from talktainmentradio.com, the radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., trying to fight off whatever just went down my pipes there. And we are discussing on today's show the proper use of time and energy. The proper use of time and energy. And we've hit several subjects. Stand by your work was mentioned, which is also meaning, Mr. Fuller indicated, to stand by your word. Your word is your work. Stand by it. Don't lie. And strive for the universal balance that we came here with the Creator. I have a question here. Says, could you ask Mr. Fuller, how do the victims of racism use counter-violence with constructive intent that will end racism, white supremacy, and produce justice, balance between people, when the indirect violence is being inflicted on the victims second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, through falsehoods and deceptions?
You counter falsehood with what? Truth. That's it. Falsehood that results, in other words, doing something, saying something even, false, that causes a person to be harmed unjustly. That is violence. So anything that you do to reveal truth in the midst of people saying something that's not true, but you reveal what is true, that is counter-violence right there. So you have to operate in all areas of activity. That's why you have to have a code for everything that's happening. Yeah, code by code would mean you know exactly what to do and what not to do, exactly what to say and exactly what not to say. That will do what? That will result in what? That will result in the best or the most constructive result that anybody could possibly have. That's what a code is supposed to be. So the antidote for anything false is truth. Like there, you just tell the truth about the food. That comes under economics, eating correctly. So you say, what is in this box of cereal? Is it anything that's going to be constructive? Or is it going to be non-constructive? Is it going to contribute to me being energized in a constructive way in thought, speech, and action? Build up my body and mind? Or is it going to tear it down? Is this box of flakes of some type, or oats of some type, or wheat of some type, or flour of some type? Is it going to tear my body down or build it up? It's going to do one or the other. No in between. It's going to build it up or tear it down.
That's true.
So you make a determination right there. False advertising. There's a lot of that.
Ooh, my
goodness. This will give you this.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you take this pill, it will do this. It will do that. And then later on, sometimes they even reveal the truth about it. Said, no, it won't. Oh, yes. It'll stop your headache, but it'll also stop your heart. Okay? How about that? See, it's advertised that, the overall thing that it will do, and the white supremacists are experts at that type of thing. They'll give you something like some of the poisons that they give you in the form of what they call drugs.
Yeah.
Opium, heroin, and whatnot. Oh, yes, they give you the illusion of getting better. Oh, since I got on heroin, my life is, oh, man, it's opened up a whole new world to me. Oh, yeah, it's a new world, all right.
Yeah.
Okay? But here's what. You are in that euphoria that I understand. I've never used the stuff. But for those who have, I think that they have probably experienced it, and they will tell you, hey, what about the other side of it? Yeah, you get this illusion that you are being improved when actually you're deteriorating.
Right.
All right? And that's been proven over and over and over again. And when you walk into a lot of grocery stores, you are looking at pure poison. And this is the world of the system of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. They deal in poison, and they know how to pretty it up. And that's in all areas of activity. They know how to make it. Hey, they put neon on everything. It all looks pretty. Mm-hmm. Paraded up and down the streets. Oh, man, it'll get your attention.
Yeah.
Okay? It's all pretty. All the different, what they call eye-catching colors. Mm-hmm. Not just black and white, but purple and orange and green. And, very colorful, they call it. Okay? But look at the content of it all and ask yourself, is this constructive or not?
Okay.
Is this something that's going to build me up or tear me down? Is this constructive or non-constructive?
Asking questions.
There's no such thing as in between.
You're asking questions. It continues this. It says on page 364 in the revised expanded edition of the code book, Mr. Fuller defines counter-violence as an act that is intended to stop or counter-react those who willfully and deliberately do unjust harm. Have you got that page, Mr. Fuller?
Page 364?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I don't know where he's going with this, but he just says that Mr. Fuller defines counter-violence as an act that is intended to stop or counteract those who willfully and deliberately do unjust. Can you see that there?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's the answer. What is the difference between violence, counter-violence, and non-violence? That was the question.
Okay.
And it gives the answer. Violence is any willful and deliberate act that is designed and intended to do unjust harm. That's violence. Counter-violence is any act that is intended to stop or counteract those who willfully and deliberately do unjust harm. Now, that's under the banner of counter-racism.
Yes.
All right, and fighting racism. So, that's in the ninth area of activity. War, counter-war. War itself, in the system of white supremacy is the only war going on the planet right now. That's the war. Everything else is a battle. They're just small battles, minor conflicts and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Small conflicts, large conflicts. I mean, so-called husband and wife. I mean, shouting at each other. That's not constructive. So war is anything. Anytime somebody's doing anything that's non-constructive, that's a form of war. Really, if they're doing it deliberately. But the biggest war, the one that really fits the description of war, is the war between those who believe in racism and those who don't. Okay. That's the only real war. Everything else is a battle. So you counter that war by having counter-war. You do counter-war acts. You do acts against racism. That's counter-war. And that includes counter-violence. Because counter-war is counter-violence. That's not non-violence. Non-violence is the complete absence of violence. That means nobody's being violent of any kind.
But counter-violence is when you combat violence.
You are combating the person who is violent.
Mm-hmm.
That's counter. Just like the counter puncher. I mean, if you're familiar with boxing,
yes,
which the code says you don't support that at all. I mean, because that's violence for the sake of getting money, but you do harm to people's, deliberate harm to people's body and brain.
Could counter violence be mistaken for violence?
Oh, sure, if a person wants to mistake it, but you name the correct word there. That's a mistake.
Okay.
I see what I mean? That's just like you walk up on a fight and you say, well, the law enforcement, the correct procedure is to find out who struck the first blow.
There you go.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, that person was being violent. The person who tried to defend him or herself by striking a heavier blow and knocked the person down, I mean, the person hit them, but they didn't go down, and getting ready to hit them again, and the person defends him or herself by getting in a swift punch, and the person who started the aggression goes down. Now, that's counter-violence.
Counter-violence. Got to hold it right there. Got to hold it right there.
Everybody should have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that just goes without saying. I mean, or rather, it needs to be said.
Okay.
But that's counter-violence. That's not non-violence. Non-violence is when nobody's being violent of any kind. But you have violence, you have counter-violence.
Okay.
The non-white person is always in a counter-violent mode, or should be.
Or should be, yes.
Right.
Okay. This email goes on to say, on page 12, 13, and 14, Mr. Fuller states the 4 basic types of power among the people of the known universe. Okay, I'm looking at it here, particularly on page 12 and 13. That's in the revised 2016 revised expanded edition of the compensatory counter-racist code. Okay, wait a minute. Then he says, then on page 14, you characterize the non-white people as having inferior power. How can the non-white people expect to end racism, white supremacy, when they have inferior power? So he lists, you have listed on page 12, starting with all power, and then top of page 13, superior power or white supremacy, then inferior power, and then fourth, immediate power. Can you explain that, please?
Inferior power, yes. If you have inferior power, it means your power is inferior to someone who has superior power. So how do you go from inferior power to power that is not inferior? Power that is equal to superior power, or whatever power is over you if that power is incorrect. So the white supremacists have power over their victims. So what do the victims do? You figure out, how do you get power when you don't have it? You get power, first of all, through what? According to compensatory counter-racist logic. Knowledge and understanding of the people who have power over you, who are doing you harm. You have to know and understand them. Where victims of racism, in my opinion, have made their huge error and are making it each and every day as we speak now, is that they spend their time studying other people who have inferior power, meaning each other.
Yes.
Like prisoners in a prison yard, and I often give this depiction so the people get a picture in their mind. It's like the prisoners just milling around watching each other all the time in a prison camp, in a death camp.
They do that?
Yes. Watching each other, all studying each other, trying to study every detail of your fellow prisoner.
Every move.
Okay? And never paying any attention to the people who are running the entire prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not logical, particularly if you're an inmate of a prison and you shouldn't be an inmate of that prison. which is what the non-white people of the planet are. We are prison inmates. But we spend our time studying people who we have inferior power. Inferior compared to what? To the people who have superior power over us, who are the white supremacists. But we spend our time studying other people who have inferior power and comparing our inferior power with their inferior power.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that is a prescription for failure to do what? To solve the problem of racism.
That's right. It goes on to say the white supremacist racists have the power to enforce labels with falsehood and deception through deceit. Now, how do you see the compensatory counter-racist logic in the form of a compensatory code in the people activity area of counter-war to counteract the non-constructive effects on the minds and bodies of the victims of racism?
I always say it's the best way that you get an understanding so you don't have a misunderstanding is to read the whole chapter, the whole area of activity called the 9th area of activity of the textbook of Victims of White Supremacy. I usually don't go into any kind of details on the air about that because that is very precise work, because you're talking about committing counter-violence against the racists directly, against their racist violence. I mean, in their system of white supremacy, if the individual chooses to do so, because it's all addressed to the individual, how you go about doing this, and what you do, what you don't do, and the cost of doing it.
Okay.
All of that is incorporated in the 9th area of activity, war, counter-war.
Okay.
So I usually don't go into details. I just tell people to read the whole chapter and come to your own conclusion.
Got it. Okay.
What your reaction is going to be to what you just read.
It goes on and says this: how do you use counter-violence with a code combined with a constructive intent against the white supremacists, the racists, who enjoy terrorizing, confusing, intimidating, brutalizing, depriving, and making fun of the weakness, stupidity, and ignorance of non-white people?
What page is that?
No, this was an answer. He's asking a question.
Oh, that's a question. That's not okay.
Yeah,
How do you counteract that?
It says, how do you use counter-violence with a code combined with a constructive intent against the white supremacist racists who enjoy terrorizing, confusing, intimidating, brutalizing, depriving, and quote unquote making fun of the weakness, stupidity, and ignorance of non-white people?
By selections from the entire code. And what does this mean? It means you study what they're doing, and then you study the best thing that you can do as a reaction to it. Not just anything, and particularly, you definitely don't do anything based on emotion. That's the thing that gets in the way. Victims of racism usually, without thinking, we don't want to do any thinking. We want to go by how we feel.
Yeah.
Well, feelings do serve a purpose, but feelings are supposed to be attached to logic. So you look at specifically what the person is doing at the moment that they're doing it.
Okay.
And you say, now, what is the best possible reaction that not only I should have to the way this person is speaking and acting, but for anyone, and if you want to give a ballpark figure in a slang term, for the next 1,000 years, how should I react that nobody will be able to top the way that I reacted to what that person is doing? For the next 1,000 years, nobody can come up with anything better than what I am getting ready to do right now, or getting ready to say. So you take selections from the code itself. And if it's not in the code book, You come up with a code. You expand. Code just means you do the best possible thing that can be done, not just something that can be done. Lots of things can be done. You want to do the best possible thing.
Okay.
Best possible, underline, the best possible thing to produce what? The most constructive result.
Mm-hmm.
Always think of the term constructive.
Okay.
Use that word constructive. If this thing that you're fixing to say as a response to what this other person is saying, is it going to produce the most constructive result that will ever be produced by anybody anywhere on the planet?
Okay.
That should be your criteria.
All right.
Nothing short of that.
And finally, before we go to you speaking about your book, I don't know if this is a question or not, but he says this: the white supremacists and their non-white slaves think harming people is fun, and there are situations when it is okay to do indirect and direct violence to people, even when that person is being deliberately, unjustly harmed. Now, I don't know if that was a question or not, but it was certainly at the end of the Gmail.
Oh, well, that was a conclusion, I guess, that they came to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
they said what they said.
but what? Yes, they said what they said. But now, is that the most constructive?
That's the question. Is that the most? Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
See, that's what the person should ask him or herself, the person that wrote it. Is that the most constructive way to go? Is that going to get the best possible result that anybody could ever get? And if the answer is yes, you go with it, if that's their answer. Or if that is the answer, not necessarily their answer, is that the answer, the best possible answer? And if it isn't, back to the drawing board. But the person has to make that decision themselves.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's why I keep reminding people, there's no such thing as Neely Fuller's code. And people shouldn't get into that personality thing with Neely Fuller even. Ever. There's no such thing as that. Neely Fuller has written some opinions about codification. That's all I have. Just some opinions and suggestions and observations. Like I say, lack of the book, really.
Mm-hmm.
Observations.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But what you see may be different from what I see.
Exactly. VGQ.
Okay? Yeah, VGQ. So you go with what you think will work. But the main thing to keep in mind is not what Neely Fuller said or what some white person said or what some other black person said. You keep in mind what works and produces the most constructive result. Because that is the greatest thing that you will ever have and ever learn anyway. And you have to be focused on that. You can't get focused on personalities. Once you get focused on personalities, it's all downhill anyway. You're just going to keep making mistakes after mistakes after mistakes.
Right.
Why? Because personalities make mistakes. And you don't want to keep making mistakes that other people made or are making around you or before you or after you. You want to do things that are mistake what? Proof.
Mr. Fuller, that just tickles me.
That's codification. Mistake proof.
That just tickles me in that, to me, that is a description of the united, independent, compensatory code system.
That's what I try to emphasize to people. You make up your own mind. You are issued a mind. Use it.
Absolutely. Can you still hear me, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Sometimes technology. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. But it is at this time that we have Mr. Fuller talk about his book that we have been referring to the entire program. This is why you need the book. Mr. Fuller, go ahead, please.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. Produce. Produce. Because that's the product you're ultimately trying to produce in order to produce correctness and ultimately a thing called peace. That's always in quotes, this thing called peace. It's a combination of truth, justice, and correctness equals peace. And peace is in quotation marks because we've never seen it. We've never experienced it. We don't have any idea of what it would be like, because no one who is on the planet now has ever experienced peace, because you cannot have peace, according to what? Compensatory logic, in a world that's dominated by racists. Racist man and racist woman in the form of what we call white supremacists. And they dominate the affairs in all 9 areas of activity of the people of color of the entire planet. So it's impossible to have peace anywhere, at any time, on the planet, anywhere, with that type of arrangement. You have to have a system of justice and correctness. Justice meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And then correctness means you have the correct balance between all the things around you. The chemicals that you use them in such a way that you always get a constructive result.
Mm-hmm.
You don't use chemicals in a way that gets a non-constructive result. Like many of these so-called drugs that they put out that are supposed to be helpful, but they pretend to be helpful in some things, and they tear down in other things, which means the sum total of that is a tearing down. That's non-constructive. So that's what this book is about. Heading ultimately toward being a people populating this planet called Earth, this wonderful planet that was given to all of us. All right? And we are supposed to be in the process of handling it and interacting with each other in the most constructive way that we possibly can do. 24/7, all the time, in every area of activity. The textbook for victims of white supremacy is designed with that in mind, to have that achieved ultimately.
Okay.
And how an individual person hopefully can bring it about. Just some suggestions. Suggestion after suggestion after suggestion. What to do, what to say.
Okay.
What to not do, what to not say. Go to producejustice.com.
Okay. And I think this might be the last Gmail today. Mr. Bobby, can you please ask Mr. Fuller, how do you teach yourself how to apply the compensatory counter-racist code in a relaxed manner? Mr. Fuller, I have heard your lectures on learning how to take rest and be calm when you use the codes in any area of people activity. Thank you for taking my question.
You do it by making up your mind that that's what you're going to do. Well, I mean, what does not being calm, what does that do? Just ask yourself that. If you're not a person who's calm, why is it you're not calm? You're just reading a book. You said while you're reading the book. You can be calm reading a book. You should be. Whatever calm means, you're just reading a book. The book is there. The book is even there when you're not reading it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what? You know, it doesn't call for drama. You don't run around up and down the stairs screaming while you're trying to read a book, I guess. And if you do that, why are you doing it? Just running around in a circle screaming to the top of your voice. Well, what are you doing that for? Is that producing a constructive result? Always look at what you're doing and ask yourself, if you're doing it, this thing that I'm doing, is it producing a constructive result? how do you read a book and read it calmly? You read a book and read it calmly by reading a book and reading it calmly in answer to the question. That's it. Calmly reading a book. That's the prescription.
Calmly doing everything, maybe?
If you can. I mean, now, ask yourself, if you're doing it in a manner that is not calm, then you look at yourself and say, why is it that I am not calm?
Yes, that would be correct, yes.
That's the correct question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that I am not calm? I was calm before I was born. Very calm, because I wasn't born.
So you want to be universally balanced in whatever it is that you're...
Yes, and after you're dead, when you're asleep, you might be calm. I hope.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're screaming and yelling in your sleep, then you're not getting much sleep.
No. Wow. So that's what we have to strive for in this compensatory action, whatever we do, is to stay focused, be logical, and to stay balanced in whatever approach that we are going, constructive approach that we are going to do.
Yes, and when a person, what calms most people is an understanding of their environment. That's what makes a person calm. Like if you're in a fire and you know how to handle fire, you're calmer than the person who's never seen fire
That
before.
would be true. Well, I hear the music, Mr. Fuller, so you know what that means. Another outstanding program. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers and listeners. Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.